Okay. Good morning, everybody. Welcome. Boker Tov. Today is September 1st. It's a brand new season. That's it. We're in the Rosh Hashanah season, and we are learning today Chassidic Heritage series. We're learning the Garments of the Soul. It's this book, Chabad, from the Chabad Library, Chassidic Heritage series, and it's called Garments of the Soul. We are on page 28. If you've not yet done so, you can purchase the book on Amazon or at kahotonline.com, or you can download the book on Amazon Kindle, like right now. So we're learning in this discourse, what this discourse is part of the Chabad Chassidic library. Remember, Chabad is not a denomination of Judaism. Chabad is a philosophy. It is it's a rational approach to faith. It's our ability to comprehend, it's our attempt to comprehend that we learn in the Torah. So now, we've learned in the Torah various stories, which seem like stories. That's what they seem like, just stories that have no connection really to our life. However, when you learn the Chabad Chassidic library, the discourse about these stories, what happens is the story comes to life, and suddenly it goes from being something that happened 3,000 years ago to something which you and I struggle with on a very real day-to-day basis, and something which becomes extremely personal and extremely meaningful to us, because through the nuances of the story, you actually find the root that takes you out of your own particular struggle when you need to get out of, okay? So, quick welcome to Dan Dubensky. I was thinking about you last night. To Rob Berger, I'm glad your book arrived yesterday. And also Ed Hockman, whose book also arrived yesterday, which is wonderful news. Glad to hear. And that's wonderful. Good. So, we're learning this twice a week. So, we're going to be moving pretty quickly. I mean, depending on your feedback, if you guys slow me down, if you ask me questions, we'll slow it down. But it's not a long discourse, so I'm glad that your books arrived already by lesson 3, so that we can, discuss it and you can read it and review it. This is something which I'm hoping you'll be able to internalize, read on your own. Now that you own the book, I'm hopeful that you'll be able to read through it and review it and make it your own, to really, really capture this idea of what is being taught here in the Garments of the Soul. Just to refresh your memory, let's get back up to speed, right? Morning, Keith. So what are we talking about over here? We start off with an innocent story. We read about it every single year in the Torah. Moses has led the Jewish people to the threshold of the promised land. They've just come out of Egypt. And the Jews say that we'd like to send spies to scout out the land. Moses says, okay, no bad idea. He asks God what he thinks about it. God says, I'm not telling you to do it. You do it if you want to do it. Okay. So Moses picks 12 men. When Moses picks men, they're obviously very holy, righteous, and worthy men. They go to scout out the land. 10 of them come back with a seething negative report about the land. 2 of them, Joshua and Caleb, give a positive report. And as a result of that, the Jewish people rebel against God, and they say, we don't believe that we can conquer the land. We want to stay here. God says, you get what you pray for. You don't want to enter the promised land, so don't. Okay. And they end up the next 40 years living out the rest of their lives in the desert. They're the wandering Jews, and it's their children that enter the promised land in the next generation under the leadership of Moses' successor, whose name is Joshua. He was one of the 2 good spies. Now, Joshua, when he's about to enter the promised land 40 years later, he sends also 2 spies, Pinchas and Caleb. Caleb was one of his other spy in the previous round. Caleb was the only one who did 2 spy shifts, right? They go only to the city of Jericho, and this time it's by divine command. So what we learned in the previous class was that there were 2 differences between the spy story of. Looks like our viewership is a little down today. I don't know what's going on. If the class isn't that appealing, then let me know, because we can change topic. It's interesting to see the numbers are a little down today, or pretty dramatically down actually. But anyways, so the difference between the spies of Joshua and the spies of Moses was two differences. We said number one, and this was the opening of the discourse. Number one is where they were sent. Moses' spies were sent to the entirety of the land, 40 days worth of travel. And Joshua's spies were sent only to the city of Jericho. A second difference that we said was that Moses' spies were sent by his own initiative. Joshua's spies were sent by God's initiative. Very nice. What's the difference between those two? Like, what does it matter? So if you're learning Torah on a one-dimensional level, well, you read it, it's a story. Here, this story went like this story went like that. Wonderful. When's the Kiddush? Okay, it's like nothing too exciting about it. But when you learn Chassidus, when you put on the glasses of Chabad, Chassidic philosophy, now everything comes to life. Because the first thing we learned in chapter 2 of this discourse was that the conquest of the land, turning the promised land into the holy land, is the work of each and every individual Jew to transform your own animal soul into godly service. And suddenly, with that startling revelation, we just experienced a da'as moment. Remember, Chabad means chachma bina da'as, idea, understanding, and realization. You take something, an idea that you've already understood, and you just realize that what you're talking about is deeply personal. So you're looking at the story of the spies, which to us is just a story, a detached and a disconnected story. And you realize, one second, the story of the spies is the story of what I'm supposed to be doing upon this earth, which is to conquer the instincts and desires of my animal soul and to transform them into the service of God. Now suddenly this becomes very interesting, because now I realize that there's two stories, there's two ways to do this. There's the way of Moses and the way of Joshua. What's the difference? Remember, the first difference was where they were going. The first difference was if they were going to the whole land, or if they were going to just the city of Jericho. And we explained what's the significance of that. The whole land is the land of the 7 nations. Moses' spies were sent to the 7 nations, corresponding to the 7 emotions, which is the essence of your animal soul, the belly of the beast. Moses believed that his spies were able to transform their essence. You can change who you are. That's what Moses says. You can change your nature. You can turn yourself around. If you're a miserable person, you can turn yourself into a happy person. If you are a jealous person, you can turn yourself into a forgiving person. If you are tight-fisted, you can turn yourself into generous, right? You can actually transform your 7 emotions. Joshua, on the other hand, says, no. That's not even possible. Don't even try. Not even possible. All that you can do is conquer the city of Jericho. What's Jericho? Jericho, we explained this last week, last lesson. It means, Jericho means smell. It's Kabbalistically related to clothing. There was a lot of interesting suggestions that were sent to me by the various students about what the connection between smell and clothing is. But we do know in the book of Kabbalah, in the book of Zohar, that there's an explicit connection. It's actually in the footnote. It's here in the footnote, in footnote number 15, if you want to see it in the book. An interesting connection between between garments and smell. Garments of the soul are very different to the essence of the soul. The essence of the soul is your 7 emotional attributes, right? Kindness, strictness, compassion, triumph, humility, communication, and connection, right? Those are your 7 attributes, your 7 emotions, the essence of who you are. But you express those emotions through one of the 3 platforms, through one of the 3 garments of thought, speech, or action. Jericho represents the garments, the 7 nations represent the 7 emotions. Moses' spies are out to conquer and transform the 7 emotions. Joshua's spies are out to transform and conquer the 3 garments. And those are 2 very, very different approaches between how we are able to strive towards self-mastery. What's the approach that you should be taking? Should you be taking an approach that changes how you act, speak, and think? without changing your inside? Or should you take an approach which changes your inside? So you think that, Keith, you should change your inside?
Well, it's from inside the way I look at things, my sight, my thought, that I act different. That's one.
Again, can you say that again slowly? That what?
Well, it's through your thoughts of how you speak and everything else. If I'm changing how I'm speaking,
Yeah.
it's kind of inside, isn't it?
No. When you change how you think and speak and talk, that's not inside. Each one of those are garments of the soul. And it's very important to understand the meaning of a garment. A garment is how you dress. It's how you present yourself to the outside, to others. That's what garments are, clothing. It's something which helps you present yourself to others. So when your soul is in and of itself, it's just the 7 emotions. But how you present those emotions is either in thought, speech, or action.
It's outside.
Yeah, I mean, look, thought is an internal experience. It's a little confusing. Thought is an internal experience, but at the end of the day, it is a mode of expression. It is expressing what? Either hate or love, either triumph or humility, either communication or connection. You're thinking about it is already an expression of it, right? But if it just sits there, if there's just a love inside of your heart, you've not expressed it in any way. If there's just a love, right? You've not expressed it in any way. There's no thought, speech, or action.
These garments, you have your soul, it's inside you, and then you have these garments that help you focus what's inside you, the way it comes out.
Yeah, you have the garments that help you focus, like a bottleneck. You can only express an emotion or an intellect, right? And they force you to make a decision on what it is that you're choosing to express, right? You know, a ganav is a thief, right? But a ganav is not somebody who can steal. It's somebody who does steal. A murderer is not somebody who can murder. A person who does murder, right? A scholar is not somebody who can learn, who does learn, right? How you choose, we're really defined by our choices, by our garments. And we'll learn a little later in this discourse the incredible importance of clothing, even though they seem so superficial. Clothing seems so superficial. Who cares what he's wearing? Don't judge a book by its cover, right? What's the difference? If you dress like a rabbi, you dress like a tramp. What's the difference, right? What matters is what's on the inside, right? But what we'll be learning in this discourse, and it's really transformational, we'll be learning about the intrinsic value of the gift wrap, of the outside, of the garment, of the way something is presented, and its profound impact on what goes on inside. How you dress on the outside changes everything about how you feel on the inside. Okay, so that's kind of what we've learned so far. That was just a recap, a bit of a recap. Any questions, comments, please do share. I see no comments coming in on YouTube. I don't know why that is. If that is because of something funny with YouTube, which is very often the case, or if it's just quiet. Don't know. I can't tell. In any event, you can always review these classes at youtube.com/Jewish Gardens. There should be a playlist called Garments of the Soul, youtube.com/Jewish Gardens. So let's keep on going now. We're on page 28. Now, before I read it inside, I'd like to explain to you, to introduce to you what it is that we're going to be talking about. So everything that we've learned about so far is now going to be explained to us within the more familiar terms of Tanya, which is how Tanya classifies the 3 kinds of Jews. We know since time immemorial there's 3 kinds of Jews. There's the righteous, the wicked, and the middle. The righteous, the righteous, the wicked, and the guy who's neither righteous nor wicked, right? Now, we normally would think that a righteous person is like very holy. A wicked person is very bad, like a murderer, like a Hitler, and a great rabbi maybe, right? And then the middle guys is like the rest of us, right? But Tanya has taught us that it doesn't work like that. Tanya has taught us that a tzaddik, a righteous person, is one who has completely transformed his animal soul to the point that he has no more desire for evil anymore. His 7 emotions of his animal soul are completely subservient to his godly soul. You know, we have 2 souls inside of us. This is foundational Tanya. We have 2 souls inside of every single one of us. We have a godly soul and an animal soul. The godly soul desires to serve God. The animal soul desires to serve itself. It's selfish, right? Just wants to serve itself. It's an animal. It's nothing. It's not like it's just not educated, right? But imagine if you could inspire the animal to serve a higher purpose. It's possible, right? If you can inspire your animal to serve a higher purpose, then now your animal wants to do big things, right? Instead of stuffing its face with pizza and ice cream, the animal wants to change the world, right? So the tzaddik is the one who has successfully transformed his animal soul to good. In the words of King David, my heart is hollow within me. And it's with this approach that he's now a tzaddik, because he no longer desires any evil. So the tzaddik, the definition of a tzaddik, of a righteous person, is one that has no desire even for evil. What is the definition of a rasha, a wicked person? Good morning, Dean. Nice to see you with us. What is the definition of a wicked person? We've learned this in Tanya. For those of you that have learned Tanya with me, you should be very, very familiar with these concepts. Oh, I see, Keith, the chat is working. Thank you for writing something on the YouTube chats. At least I know someone is there. Okay. The definition of a rasha, of a wicked person, is not only does he desire to do evil, because his animal soul is just, is roaring like it always was, like he was born, but he actually expresses his animal soul in one of the garments of the soul: thought, speech, or action. So a wicked person is someone that gives expression to his selfish animal soul, either in thought, speech, or action. Now that's a very sobering thought, because that helps us realize that whilst I thought I was an okay, good kind of guy, I just realized that me and everyone here that I know practically is wicked, right? Because we all express our animal soul on some level, thought, speech, or action, right? So that being the case, what does that leave us with when it comes to the intermediary Jew? What is the intermediary Jew? What is the Beinoni? What is the Beinoni? See, if the tzaddik is the one that doesn't even desire evil because he's transformed his animal soul. And if the rasha is the one that has not transformed his animal soul and actually gives it expression through thought, speech, and action, what does that leave the Beinoni? The Beinoni is the one who, like the rasha, has not transformed his animal soul. Yet, like the tzaddik, he never gives it expression in the garments of the soul. The benefit, the uniqueness of the Beinoni, of the intermediary Jew, is that he has full control of the garments of his soul. He doesn't have the control of the 7 nations, of the 7 emotions, but he does have control of Jericho, of thought, speech, and action. He's in full control of Jericho, thought, speech, and action. I am the master of my home. Quick story to illustrate. So there was a chassid who came to, maybe it was the Baal Shem Tov, who was teaching this idea. And the chassid said to him, I don't understand how I'm supposed to be able to control my garments, the garments of my soul. How can I possibly control my thoughts, my words, and my actions? I mean, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. How can you possibly expect that of a human being? Fair enough? Good question. So the Baal Shem Tov said to him, go to my student, Reb Beryl. I have a student by the name of Reb Beryl. Go visit him and he'll answer the question for you. So the guy travels a long way. He gets to the home of Reb Beryl in some far out town. I think he lived in Mezrich. Comes to him, it's late at night, it's snowing, there's a blizzard going on. And he's relieved to see it's late at night, but he sees there's a light on in the home of Reb Beryl. Thank God he's not going to have to spend the night outside on a park bench. So he comes and he looks through the window and he sees Reb Beryl studying Torah by the light of a candle. Fantastic. So he knocks on the door, can't wait to get warmed up after his long journey. No answer. He knocks a little harder, no answer. He bangs and bangs and bangs, no answer. But he looks through the window, he sees Rebbe is right there. He's like 5 feet away from him. And he's completely and utterly oblivious. After like 3 hours of frustration and banging and God knows what else, Rebbe calmly comes up, stands up, he opens the door. The guy's like freezing half to death outside. He opens the door and he says, Shalom Aleichem Ayid, welcome a fellow Jew. What can I do to help you coming inside? Warm up. When the guy gets back to his senses, he warms himself up and has a hot coffee or tea. Rebbe says, well, what brings you here? He says, I came to ask you a question. But before I ask you the question, I have to ask you, why did you make me wait? Didn't you hear me banging on the door for 3 hours? It was ridiculous. I was so upset with you. So Rebbe said to him, listen, I'm the master of my house. Who I wish I allow to enter, and whom I don't wish, I don't allow to enter. The Chassid heard this and he says, I think I just got the answer to my question. Because he realized that this was all an elaborate setup. The reason why the guy didn't answer the question, didn't answer the door, is because he knew what he was here for. The answer was the reason why, was the fact that he gave him a 3-hour wait outside. The answer to his question about controlling his garments, his thought, speech, and action, was given to him by making him wait outside for 3 hours to say, listen, I am the master of my house. Whom I want, I allow in. Whom I don't, I keep outside. Same goes for your thought, speech, and action. This is my house. This is my house. What I want to think about, what I want to talk about, what I want to act out, I do. What I don't, I don't. If it goes through my thought, speech, and action, it means it's mine. I let it in. Right? And that's what this discourse is really coming to teach us, friends. It's a profound, profound discourse, which I encourage you to meditate upon. You are in control of your Jericho. Jericho is yours for the taking. That was the city that God instructs Joshua to send spies to, because every single Jew can and therefore must conquer his Jericho, his thought, speech, and action, the garments of his soul. When it comes to the 7 nations, to the 7 emotions, God says, I'm sorry, I'm not commanding Moses to send those spies because you don't have the capacity to do that. I'm not going to put you in a position that you don't have the ability, the resources, the tools to overcome. I'm not putting you in that position. I can't command you to do something which I've not given you the tools to do. That is the work of the tzaddik. Not every Jew can become a tzaddik. But at the same time, you can become a Beinoni. You can control Jericho. And for that explains the difference between the spies of Joshua and the spies of Moses. Go ahead.
So Beinoni, since he's not a Sadik, is that because once in a while his garments don't work that well? He yells at something or he acts a certain way. So he's not evil, however he is not. So
that's a good example, that he might yell once in a while. Let's say he loses his temper, some road rage, right? He might do something that is inconsistent with the values of his godly soul, right? Yeah. So then what he's done is that he's lost control. He's given expression to his animal soul.
He's still not Rashi, not evil.
No, that makes him evil. If he's done something which is a sin, which is evil, then he's lost control of Jericho. And he falls temporarily into the status of a Rasha until he can pick himself up again. Elaine's asking a question. Isn't it significant that being a tzaddik is only possible as an innate status granted by Hashem? That's exactly the point, Elaine. That the status of a tzaddik is only granted by Hashem, and that's why Hashem doesn't command us to become a tzaddik, because you can't. It can only be gifted to you from above, but you cannot achieve it on your own. It would be cruel for God to command us to do something which we don't have the capacity to do on our own. It's nice to see Matan Marmer, that's Jay and Stephanie's grandson from New York, is studying today with us. Good morning to you, Hannah, as well, and Soteria Huggins is also with us as well. Good. Okay, so let's do this idea inside of the text. Okay, let's take a look and do this inside the text. So we're on page 28. We've just discussed the idea. Let's read it inside. So tzaddikim and beinanim. The Torah is eternal and applicable to everyone. It follows then that the fact that the Torah also tells of the sending of Moses' spies to scout out the entire land is an eternal lesson to every Jew, even one who is not on the level of Moses. So the fact that the Torah tells us the story of Moses' spies means that there's something relevant about that story as well, right? Even though it seems out of our reach, the fact that we read about it in the Torah means that we do have a connection to the story of the spies of Moses. What is that connection? We can understand this by introducing a concept discussed in Tanya in chapter 14 regarding tzaddikim and beinanim. The divine service of the beinani, the intermediary Jew, involves primarily the garments of the soul. That's what he does. He cannot control his 7 emotions. What he can control is the garments of his soul, the thought, speech, and action, thought, speech, and deed. Thus, the rank of the beinani is the rank attainable by every man. For even when a person's heart craves and desires some material pleasure, he is capable of restraining himself and controlling the drive of his heart's lust by not allowing it to find expression in the garments, in thought, speech, and thought, i.e., what does it mean in thought? Not to willingly think about his desire. Sometimes you'll catch yourself thinking about a desire, a forbidden desire. It's okay if it was unconscious, but the moment that you consciously think about it, that's when you've allowed that guest into your home, to the extent of being able to divert his mind from it entirely. So we are perfectly capable of controlling our thought, speech, and action, of controlling our own Jericho. The big question is to you, have you controlled your Jericho? And I will tell you, yes, that you do. If you think about it, there are times in your day when you are in full control of your Jericho, of your thought, speech, and action. Think about it. Like, let's say when you're davening, right? Your phone is away from you. The distraction is gone. The TV is off. You're underneath your talis, your tefillin. Your mouth is involved in prayer. Your action is involved in prayer. Your thought is meditating on a concept of Tanya, right? So in that scene, you are now in full control of your Jericho. It doesn't only have to be during prayer. It could be in other times of the daytime as well. You know, you could be studying Torah. You could be giving charity. You could be doing something which is a mitzvah. You could be walking to shul. Think about the scene. I'm walking to shul with my kids on Shabbos, right? We're talking, let's say, Torah stories, and we're doing a mitzvah. We're walking to shul, and we're thinking about Torah, right? Right there, you're in full control of your Jericho. So every one of us has times of our day where we're in full control of our Jericho. The service of tzaddikim, on the other hand, the tzaddik is the one, remember, who has transformed the 7 nations, the 7 emotions, primarily involves the emotions of the heart, which is love and fear of God, and not every person merits this level of service. Not every Jew can reach that level. For man does not have that much jurisdiction over matters governed by the heart. Remember, Tanya goes through a very, very beautiful discussion as to why it is that God would put us into a situation where we have to struggle for the rest of our lives. Right? He says, I'm giving you an animal soul that you will not be able to properly vanquish, but you'll only be able to curb. You'll only be able to curb it by controlling the way you express it or don't express it. Right? So Tanya gets into a beautiful discussion in chapter 27. The Tanya tells us a beautiful concept that is exactly what God wants from you, because every single time that you curb, restrict, and restrain your animal desire, you release a blinding, infinite light that shines throughout all the universes equally. So it's not about the destination, it's about the journey. God doesn't want you to reach the destination. He wants you on the journey. Every time that you force yourself to do something that you don't want to do, you're able to achieve the release of that infinite light. Like a beautiful story of the Tzemach Tzedek, the third Chabad Rebbe. A Chassid once came to complain to him. He said, Rebbe, what should I do that I have no desire to learn Torah? What should I do? I have no desire to learn Torah. So the Tzemach Tzedek responded to him right away, and he says, and what should I do that I do desire to study Torah? What was he answering him? He said like this. So your problem is that you don't have a desire to learn. My problem is that I do desire to learn. So when I learn Torah, I'm not breaking my ego. I am not, I guess that some tzaddik was a tzaddik. So he wasn't breaking his ego, so he didn't have the benefit of being able to release that blinding infinite light of infinity every single time that he forced himself to learn. You, he said, you don't desire to learn. Fantastic! It means you can break yourself each and every single time that you do force yourself to learn. But me, I want to learn, so it's no big deal for me to study Torah. That's a massive theme of Tanya. But back to what we're talking about over here. The tzaddik is the one. What's so funny?
I'm just thinking, I'm breaking up. When I come and I study with you, I'm breaking.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Yeah. It's beautiful because you're obviously not a tzaddik. In the sense that you want to stay in bed or you want to do something else, right? Which is not holy. It means your inside is either a Rasha or a Beinoni, right? Because your animal soul is strong as ever. But yet you showed up. So every time you show up and show, you're releasing this infinite light. And it's amazing. We're studying Torah. It's incredible, right? So the emotions of the heart are not in full control of every human being, right? So make sure I hand. No, sorry. So man doesn't have jurisdiction over the matters governed by his heart. So therefore, now we understand the difference between the spies of Joshua and Moses. Joshua was sending spies to conquer Jericho. This is only the Beinoni, the work of the Beinoni. Moses was sending spies to the whole land. He was having them aspire towards becoming tzaddikim. So if that's not relevant to the ordinary Jew, then why does the Torah teach it to us? Why do I need to know the story? Of what relevance is it for me to know the story? Says the Tanya, nevertheless, the reason we're told the story is because before you're born, you're made to make an oath. We learned this in yesterday's Tanya class. You're made to make an oath before you were born. You don't remember the oath you made? You don't have it in writing somewhere? Before you were born, it said, you were made to swear an oath that you will be a tzaddik. And certainly you will never be a Rasha. You will aspire towards becoming a tzaddik and you'll never be a Rasha. What does that mean? How can I become a tzaddik? I thought it's only you have to be invited by God to become a tzaddik. Only God can give you the ability to transform your 7 emotions, your animal soul. How can I be given an oath? How can I swear an oath that I'm going to become a tzaddik? The answer is you're going to swear an oath to try to become a tzaddik. You're going to do your part. I'm going to do everything that I can to become a tzaddik. And then God will decide if he wants to let me in the door or not to the tzaddik club, right? I guess it's like American Express Black, right? I use this example often. That when you're using a certain volume, I'm still waiting for my invitation from American Express Black. But I'm doing my part. I'm paying my bills. Thank God I'm paying them on time. You know, we're spending money with American Express. They should like us, right? But I'm waiting for that invitation to come and say you're invited to American Express Black, right? From as far as I'm concerned, I'm doing the best that I can. I mean, I'm spending as much money as I possibly am capable of, right? Right. I'm putting it all on Amex so we can, accrue the points. But they haven't invited me, so I'm doing my part. God, the big bosses over there are going to have to decide if they want me or not, right? But the same thing is with God, is that we do our part to live and behave as much as we can like a tzaddik, right? To try to control and curb the 7 emotions, whether that actually transforms into a transformed animal soul or not, that is depending upon Hashem and whether he wants to let us in. And that's how we conclude the paragraph. Nevertheless, the reason that we learn the story in the Torah, even though it's not necessarily relevant to every single Jew, an oath is administered to every Jew, exhorting him to be a tzaddik. These are the opening words of Tanya, meaning that every person must, to some extent, attempt to involve himself in the mode of service of tzaddikim, as explained at length in Tanya. That's why we're told the story. Because you have to try to become one. It's got to be out on your horizon. Even if it's a mirage on your horizon, this aspiration of one day being in full control of your 7 emotions to the point that you don't even desire to do evil, that's got to be on your radar. Rob Berger, sounds like Freud studied this discourse. The id is the Rasha. The ego is the Beinoni. And the superego is the tzaddik. Have you ever heard of such a comparison? The id being the Rasha, okay. But the ego is the Beinoni. I don't know why you say the ego is the Beinoni. I think the ego is the manifestation of the animal soul, and the superego is the tzaddik. I'm not sure if I know the difference in the ego and the superego. I think I know what it is, which is, your most basic carnal desires. Ego is your self-centered narcissism. And superego, I don't know what superego is. So I don't know why superego would be a tzaddik. I'm not, maybe I don't understand the terms enough, Rob, for me to be able to comment on that. But the answer to your question is no, I've never heard of such a comparison. What was that, Keith?
No, I'm just trying to think what Rob said.
Trying to process Rob's comment, okay?
And if he was here, I'd love to be talking about it.
If Rob, Keith is saying if he was here, we'd love to discuss it with you, Rob. There's a comment coming in here from Wesley Curry II. Maybe it was him, I don't know. It says, draw nigh unto the Lord, and he shall draw nigh unto you. Okay, fine. Think you that emulating makes you the matter. I'm not sure. The sentence is out of order. So if you put the sentence in order, I might be able to understand the question. In any event, this concludes today's Torah study, where we have moved a little bit further into this discussion of garments of the soul, the conquest of Joshua, the conquest of Moses. We're going to keep on going, God willing, on Monday, I guess, as we continue through the discourse. But I encourage you very much, read the discourse inside, understand it, make it your own, take ownership. It's going to be a stunning, transformative approach to living. So wishing you much success in living your best life, in full control of your thought, speech, and action, of the garments of your soul. Frustration, no more. Be in sync with yourself. Be in equilibrium. May your inside match your outside. Everybody have a wonderful day. Shalom. Take care. We're going to continue tomorrow with a crash course on Yom Kippur tomorrow morning. So take care, be well, and thank you for joining me this morning.